Hello everyone and welcome back to the Quest for Classics. Now if you haven't watched the first 2 episodes of this series, I'm going to take a little bit of offense to that. They're pretty good videos, well at least the first one is, and I'd recommend you watching them before you watch this, but because I like you, I'll give you a little bit of a rundown of how we do things around here. You see, the Quest for Classics is a series where I go back and watch some of the most noteworthy and popular films of all time because that is a huge gap in my cinematic repertoire, and these are films that I've never seen before, and we as a unit, me mainly, but you guys can contribute in the comments, determine whether they have held up to the reputation that they have garnered for decades and decades, and see if they are truly, by the title's name, classics. Today's episode, we will be looking into another Spielbergian hit, arguably one of the best films of all time according to many lists, and that would be Jaws. And without further ado, let's get into it, shall we? My first impression of Jaws, actually, believe it or not, wasn't really much of anything going into this. Aside from the fact that I know it inspired a ton of terrible shark movies that I love with all my heart that come out consistently on a yearly basis. Other than that, I know that it's supposed to be really good, and the whole meme, blank did for blank what Jaws did to Oceans meme is pretty funny. But other than that, I know it's good. And if I'm being honest with you, I don't know why I hadn't watched it before this, but something had just kept me from it, and I don't know why. It might be my aforementioned, if you watch my Jurassic Park episode, not dislike for Spielberg, but just kind of on the fence-ishness about him and his newer properties, but I most certainly have watched it now. In a shocking turn of events, Jaws is the first film, not The Godfather, not Jurassic Park, of this series that I have absolutely loved. This is probably one of my favorite movies in the past couple years that I've watched. It's so alive. Everything about it is alive. I think what I want to start out here is the kinetic and potential energy that this film has. When you talk about suspense films, I often watch suspense films and it's like, is this really a suspense film, or are you just holding on singular shots very consistently and then something happens? But in Jaws, there is such amazing buildup, and it does so without just the normal, okay, let's just hold on this and then boom, something happens. The buildup is so much more lively, and it really gets to you, and it gets your heart pumping. And then when it takes off, it takes off. The shots are always moving. The people are always moving. It's like poetry or art in motion, which is technically what film is. I know, get off my back. I'm just so excited to talk about this. There's never a dull moment in Jaws, and you have to take every single aspect of the film into consideration when you make that statement. I think that the dialogue is also very lively, the way that lines overlap, and the realism of the way that people handle the situations being portrayed in the dialogue is so interesting. The monologues don't ever come off as forced, but they are put in situations where monologues are warranted. You know what I mean? It's so perfect. I don't know if there's any other word to describe it, but perfect. I can understand people being a little bit thrown off at the fact that the first half and the second half are completely different entities. The first half being a drama about a community and attacks on that community, and the second half being a survival thriller about a shark terrorizing a group of 3 men. But I think that the first half and second half are so smoothly transitioned into each other, and assets from each half are brought in perfectly to the other. Like there's a lot of tense moments in the first half, and there's a lot of great lines and acting and dialogue in the second half. It meshes together to make such a well-rounded product that it honestly blows my mind. I think what I'm trying to say there is that the film doesn't sacrifice any of its assets when other assets are brought in. You know what I mean? Like, okay, so if you're really going to focus on the thrill of a shark attack, sometimes in other films that I've seen, the dialogue and the characterization are sacrificed to make way for that intensity. In Jaws, that does not happen at all. You still get the character development, you still get all of the brilliant dialogue and technical elements, but you also get the terror. It's so well crafted. And even though I was made aware of all of those aspects during, my years of film discourse, what people really did not talk about in this film that I found to be even more amazing than, the sound design and how great that was, and the cinematography and how great that was, were the performances by Roy Scheider, Richard Dreyfuss, and Robert Shaw. 3 completely different sides of a coin if a coin had 3 sides. Wow. Amazing. I mean, the way in which they all cope with the situation that's put in front of them in such, I know this is going to sound corny, in such distinctly different yet somewhat similar overarchingly ways, in seeing them bond, in seeing them go against each other at certain points, and the quippy one-liners, which I really thought that the one-liners were going to throw me off, but guess what? They are inserted at the times where one-liners would be acceptable. Like, sometimes you're just so dumbfounded that you can't help but just say something that sounds super obvious to everyone else, but to you it's like, hey, we're gonna need a bigger boat. You know what I mean? It's crazy. Mind blown completely. And man, I'll tell you what, I know that he gets a lot of recognition for Star Wars, and I know that the main theme of this gets a lot of recognition. This, in my opinion, from what I've heard, of course I haven't heard all of them, but from what I've heard, this is John Williams' best score. I know the classic, Jaws theme, but the way that it's reworked into different tones, and it's reworked into different octaves, and it's reworked into different settings is so cool. And then the rest of the score also works in perfect tandem. Every song works in perfect tandem with the environment that it's being immersed into. I think that's that's the way I can say it. And honestly, while I was preparing to record this review, I was going back and forth in my head. Is this a 9? Is this perfect? Is there anything wrong with this film that I can possibly think of? And unfortunately for the film, yes, there is one thing that kind of bothered me a little bit, and that was the way that Murray Hamilton's mayor character was written. Listen, I understand wanting to make profits, and the livelihood of your city needs to be sustainable and stuff like that. But at a certain point, I think that the line would be drawn for the safety of everyone. And I don't think that realistically, if you look at the timeline, Murray Hamilton's character does not realistically draw that line early enough. And that kind of bothered me a little bit. It just didn't come off as something that would actually have, one shark attack, I guess, try and push it under the rug. A child dies in front of your whole community, maybe not a great idea. And I think that a lot of people would concur, in positions of leadership would concur that, hey, maybe we wouldn't do that. So that's the only thing that kind of threw me off about Jaws. But otherwise, just great. It's just a great film. And also, The Godfather is a great film, right? But this one left me enthused to talk about it with y'all and with the people around me after I finished the film. So yeah, Jaws is great. Overall, it's the... You know what? It's not the best film. I'm going to say that The Godfather is the best film, but this is my favorite film that I've seen from this series. And at the end of the day, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. And in regards to the question of whether it is a classic or not, if you couldn't tell from the review, it is 1,000,000% a certified film tape classic. If there's anything that I can say to convince you of such, I rented this on Amazon because I couldn't find a really high quality copy anywhere else. And honestly, I might watch it again before my rental period is over. That is how much I enjoyed it. So thank you for watching this episode of Quest for Classics. Next week, I don't know. I don't know what I'm feeling. Oh, I'm going to do Pulp Fiction next week. I really want to do Pulp Fiction next week. I've never seen it, and that's the film that everyone's like, oh, film bro, film. Brr, 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 brr. I'm interested to see whether it's really that great, but I'm pretty sure it will be. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will talk to you in the next one. Bye.